Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, it's John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. And wow, do we have a lot to talk about today, especially in the world of Modern. The Masters 25 previews came out this week, and as you can imagine, the market is reacting almost as violently as a lot of the fan base is. So anyway, we're going to look at the Modern market. A lot of the cards that are being reprinted, of course, are going down in value. However, cards that people maybe expected to see in the set are skyrocketing right now. So we're going to look at all of that. Not to mention, we are starting to see implications from the unbannings a few weeks ago, too, and that's having a big impact as well. Beyond that, we're going to check in with Standard, Legacy, as well as a few other notable cards. Now, quickly before we get started, just a really fast reminder, if you're looking for a way to support the channel, just check out the description below. You'll find a few ways. Our Patreon page is linked there. You'll find product links for Amazon. Anything you purchase on Amazon, once you go through that first link, we'll get a small percentage. And then finally, Flipside Gaming. Anything you pick up there with a promo code that you saw at the top of the video, we'll get a small percentage for the channel of that as well. Always appreciate the folks that check those out, but also all of you that just watch the videos are important too. So thank you very much. And with that being said, let's get into it with the top 5 Standard cards that have lost value this week. Number 5 is Blood Sun, down 49 cents to $3.29. Now this card has found a little bit of a foothold in Legacy in the sneak attack decks, the mono red ones. A lot of times you'll see like 3 of those in the main actually. Haven't really seen it show up in too many other places, though. I have seen other players trying it out in various deck lists, like maybe a one of and like a mono red prison deck in Modern, stuff like that. But nothing else has really started to grab a foothold yet. So we'll have to kind of see what happens with this card. Now, I do think ultimately it does have tons of potential. It might not be right now, but as metas shift and more cards enter formats, I think at some point this card becomes a little bit bigger than it is. Number 4, Vraska's Contempt, down 49 cents to $15.17. Finally goes down a little bit. This card has been trending up for a number of weeks now. And basically, once the meta shifted with Rivals of Ixalan, black became a much more important color. So a lot of people had to scramble to get their removal suites. This was a big part of it. And this card became very hot for a while. Now, hopefully, everybody's got their 4 copies that play Standard, and you're going to start to see it decrease. Because this is an Ixalan rare. There's a ton of copies out there. The reason that it spiked as much as it did was just high demand for a short period of time. But there's still a lot of supply out there, so I would expect this to start going down over the next few weeks. Number 3, Hezeret the Fervent, down $1.27 to $19.79. Hezeret still seeing tons of play all over the place. Mardu Pyromancer decks, for example, in Modern. Pretty much every deck that has red in it in Standard. So nothing's really changed here, except for the fact that about a week ago or so, a little over a week ago, we found out that this card was going to be available in one of the Standard Challenger decks. It'll be coming out at the beginning of April. So with that knowledge out there, knowing that more copies of this will be entering the marketplace, people are starting to liquidate a little bit and sell off their copies at a lower price. So you're seeing a drop here, and this will continue to drop, I think, over the coming weeks. Same story with our number 2 card, Chandra Torch of Defiance, goes down to $1.56 this week to $27.19. She will also be in that same mono red aggro deck that you can pick up in the beginning of April, along with Hezeret. Number 1, Kumina Tyrant of Vraska, down $3.31 to $13.94, and this continues its downward spiral. Now, a couple of things with this card. Even if the Merfolk deck did better in the Standard meta, that would be the only deck you find this card in, really. So that shoehorns it a little bit, makes it a niche card, even if that deck was more successful. But unfortunately, that deck hasn't really done that well and is really starting to fall off. Is it still kicking around out there? Sure. Friday Night Magic, Magic Online, you can expect to run into decks running 4 of these, but from a competitive point of view, it hasn't really done what a lot of people thought it might do. So, of course, that is contributing to the decline. I have seen a player here and there trying to run one of these in like a modern version of Merfolk. I don't know if that's going to catch on or not. I guess we'll see. But even so, that's just a one of. The only reason this isn't already below $10 is the commander scene. This is actually a very interesting commander for Merfolk builds. All right, let's move on to the top 5 Standard cards that have gained value this week. Coming in at number 5 is an old friend, Ronos the Indomitable. It's been a while, up 23 cents to $8.49. And this card was part of a Gruul aggro deck, which actually came in first in Grand Prix Memphis. So as you can imagine, there's some attention on the card this week. Number 4, Scavenger Grounds, up 26 cents to $2.39. This has really just become a standard staple at this point, even if it's just a one of in a lot of decks, sometimes on the board, sometimes in the main. It just deals with graveyard interactions that you might find in a gift deck or any deck running the Scarab God. Number 3, Yahenni Undying Partisan, up 28 cents to $2.89. Now, this card is going up a little bit this week, but percentage-wise, it's actually a pretty nice jump. The reason for this is it is a vampire that's actually pretty good, and even though, again, much like the Merfolk deck, vampire decks haven't been able to grab a hold of a lot of success in the world of Standard, there's still a lot of fans out there trying to make them work, playing at Friday Night Magic, trying to brew different builds, and this card is usually in those builds. So it does have a little bit of a fan base right now, and not to mention, too, vampire decks continue to be popular in Commander, and this is a good pickup. Number 2, Rekindling Phoenix, up 94 cents to $30. So this reaches $30 and then finally starts to slow down a little bit. However, keep a close eye on this one, because even though, a lot of people are getting their copies now for Standard, and already people are going to start thinking about Dominaria and might want to not necessarily purchase some of the more expensive cards now, you will start to see, I think, some interest in this card again in the beginning of April when those Challenger decks come out, because this is a fantastic upgrade for the Mono Red aggro, as well as the Mardu Vehicle deck. So I think if people pick those up, they may be in the market to find some Rekindling Phoenixes, and you might see another spike within a month or so. Number 1, Carnage Tyrant, up $1.16 to $19.69. This card's been hanging out in this new meta, actually performing pretty well here and there, but again, it was part of that Gruul aggro deck that came in first at Grand Prix Memphis. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of interest in this card this week. All right, let's move on to the world of Modern, and because Modern is so insane this week, we're going to do top 10s instead of top 5s. I probably could have done top 20s if I wanted to make this video go on forever, but let's just jump in with the cards that lost value this week. As you can imagine, most of these, anyway, are cards that are being reprinted in Masters 25. Number 10, Phyrexian Obliterator, down $1.43 to $30.38. One of the early reveals we had a few weeks back. This card isn't a huge Modern card or anything like that. A while back, every once in a while, there was a fringe deck that would run this, like a Mono Black Devotion deck, but you don't really see much of that anymore. Aside from that, it's a really interesting casual card that people do play in Commander and other just casual formats. Like Cube, too, if you want to build a Mono Red Devotion theme in your Cube, a lot of people will be looking to pick something like this up. But because the demand is a little bit more narrow, the reprint, I think, is really going to dig into the price here. Number 9, Fetid Heath, down $1.68 to $31.87. So we know we're going to get the enemy-colored filter lands in the upcoming set now. And because of that, the prices are going down on a few of these already, actually pretty significantly. This is maybe one of the more popular ones. You would see this sometimes in the Eldrazi builds every once in a while, or like Smallpox builds. So it wasn't in a ton of different mana bases in Modern, but enough, and due to the rarity, because the Eventide set where these 5 cards that are being reprinted came from, had a really low print run for Modern era Magic, so they were a little bit inflated. Expect these to go down quite a bit too. Number 8, Azusa Lost But Seeking, down $1.83 to $39.19. Another one of the early reveals. This card still sees plenty of Modern play in Amulet Titan, the Collected Company builds, some versions of that. But again, we're about to get a new copy of it introduced with the Judge promo art, so a lot of people are excited about that. Number 7, Jace the Mind Sculptor. This is the World Wake version, down $2.04 this week to $139. So a couple things going on here with Jace. Obviously, there was a huge increase when this card was unbanned, and we're starting to see the snapback finally happen a little bit, especially with this original version. So the card is going to be popular in Modern, no doubt. It's already doing pretty well in deck lists. We've seen that over the last week. And as people sit down and play with this card and actually get their copies of it, if they need copies, you're going to start to see some stabilization down. On top of that, the card is also being reprinted in a new set. That's going to help the price point a little bit too. Don't expect it to drop super low or anything. I would expect the World Wake version maybe finally stabilizing 120, 125 perhaps, if all goes well. We'll have to kind of wait and see. But once people start cracking packs, at least there'll be a cheaper option to pick up with that Masters 25 version of Jace. Number 6, Summoner's Pact. This was a good reprint that you'll find in Masters 25. Future Sight is down $1.68 to $17.17. Modern Masters is down $2.21 to $16.49. You'll find this in Amulet Titan, Titan Shift, pretty much any deck that has the word Titan in the title in Modern. So this card was seeing a fair amount of play. It's nice to see the reprint coming. Number 5, Trinisphere, down $2.24 to $22.50. One of the few cards today that is not in Masters 25. This is from Darksteel. This had a pretty big spike over the last few weeks because people were trying to figure out if this is going to be good sideboard tech against Bloodbraid Elf. I think the jury's still out on that. It does snap back a little bit this week. We'll have to kind of wait and see where it goes. Number 4, Crucible of Worlds. This is down 241 to 6202, the 10th edition version here. A little surprising because this is one of the cards that was not reprinted in Masters 25. And I think a lot of people were expecting to see it. Now, a lot of the cards that people were expecting to see are spiking pretty big this week, which we're going to see in a few moments. This one, however, goes down a little. Maybe it's because it had a pretty high price point to begin with. At least this 10th edition version, it might be stabilizing and perhaps goes back up next week. Number 3, Ensnaring Bridge, 3 versions here. 8th edition, down $1.63 to $42.79. 7th edition, down $2.57 to $41.22. Stronghold, down $3.02 to $41.04. So this is a card that, of course, sees play in Lantern Control, which won the Pro Tour, a very popular deck, as well as sometimes burn builds. Not all, but some burn builds will run these as defense. And because of that, this card has gotten pretty hot over the years. And finally, Masters 25 is bringing us a reprint with some really awesome art, as a matter of fact. And this card, I think, will trend down quite a bit now. Number 2, Rugged Prairie, another filter land, down $3.40 this week to $18.98. This one you'll sometimes find in like Boros Prison decks. And number 1, Chalice of the Void, 2 versions, Meriden, down $5.60 to $69.99, with Modern Masters down $6.17 to $69.77. So this card is being reprinted at Mythic and Masters 25, which does mean that you're going to look at this more of as a short-term sale, I think, than anything. These prices will dip. Of course, the newer version of the card will be the most affordable, probably by quite a bit, as a matter of fact. And the folks that have been waiting to get more copies of this have a better chance to get it at a better value, at least for a limited period of time. As the months go by and the next year goes by, eventually these cards, I think, will rebound because they do see so much play in Modern, especially the Tron decks, which are popular. And then, of course, Legacy and Vintage as well. Now that it's getting reprinted, it will probably not be reprinted for a really long time. So this is one that you might want to pick up in the coming weeks, especially once packs start getting cracked. Because one of the weird side effects of these Master sets is, even though, yes, they give you more supply in the marketplace, they also encourage more demand. Because if I open one of these, now I might be thinking about picking up a few more copies for decks. And now all of a sudden there's more demand in the marketplace, even though there is also more supply. So yeah, this is one to keep an eye on. And like I said, I'd pull the trigger at the right time if you're in the market to pick it up. All right, let's move on to the cards that have gained value this week. This is really something else. It's kind of funny because a lot of times people say, Master sets crash the market and they hurt stores and stuff like that. Well, yeah, maybe for the cards that are being reprinted, but how about all the cards that aren't reprinted, that people either were anticipating were going to be reprinted, or are parts of decks that go along with the cards that are being reprinted? So let's see what's going on here. Number 10, Kozilek Butcher of Truth, up $3.68 to $36.75. This is the Rise of the Eldrazi version. This one's actually more of a legacy card that just slipped onto the list due to its play in Eldrazi Post. This has actually been pretty hot for a few weeks now, and I think it's mostly because it was undervalued for a while. Number 9, Stabcaster Mage from Modern Masters 2017, up $4.21 to $77. I don't really think a lot of people were anticipating this in Masters 25 because we saw it in Modern Masters 2017. However, the reason this is spiking is because control decks are just looking really strong right now in Modern, thanks to the inclusion of Jace. Those Jeskai control decks had a pretty good week, so Stabcaster is reaping the benefits of that. Number 8, Creeping Tar Pit, up $4.32 to $26.59. Here is the first of a few creature lands we're going to see on the list today. And I'll tell you, I really thought we were going to see the creature lands. At the bare minimum, I thought we'd see Celestial Colonnade, and we did not. So a lot of people that were holding off picking these up are now in the market to pick them up before they get more expensive. You're seeing a little bit of a scramble right now. Number 7, Celestial Colonnade, up $5.28 to $64.12. This card was spiking because the control decks were actually pretty popular in Modern. And then it stabilized a little bit, and then they said, okay, Jace is going to be unbanned. It started to go up again. Then people thought, well, it's got to be in Masters 25, right? So it started to stabilize. Well, it's not. So it's going up again, and really the sky's the limit at this point for this card. This is one of those cards that probably gets to the $80 range before we know it, because, again, it's a Modern staple. We don't know when it's going to be reprinted at this point, and Jace has just made control even that more desirable of a deck. Number 6, Dark Confidant. 3 copies here. Modern Masters 2015 up $4.54 to $59.21. Ravnica, City of Guilds up $6.61 to $66.95. Modern Masters up 930 to 63.24. This card has recently just had a renaissance. This was a huge card in Modern for a very long time. It started to fall off percentage-wise for a little while, but now the Humans deck, incredibly popular. Jund decks becoming more popular again. Not that they had gone away, but Bloodbraid has made them even bigger right now. This shows up in a number of other builds as well. Very, very hot card right now. Number 5, Through the Breach, up 1072 to 5606. When is this going to be reprinted? I don't know. So, a lot of people thought it was going to be Masters 25. A lot of those people, of course, would be wrong, myself included. So, this doesn't show up a card that sees extensive play in Modern as well as Legacy. Has a big week. Number 4, Raging Ravine, yet another creature land, up 11.11 to $25. Another card that shows up in a number of mana bases, but maybe most importantly right now, this is a card that you will find in some Jund decks, which are becoming more popular. Number 3, Liliana of the Veil. Wow, Modern Masters 2017 up 971 to 119.69. Innistrad up 1780 to 126.50. Now, what is going on with her? Some players maybe thought she'd show up in Masters 25. However, I think a lot of people were of the mindset that, well, okay, she was in Modern Masters 2017, so maybe we won't see her here, but she's still spiking super aggressively, more due to gameplay than anything. She was a very good Modern card forever, and recently some people were starting to get a little cold on it actually in Modern. However, that changed with the unbannings thanks to its interaction with Bloodbraid and like Jund decks. Not to mention, a lot of folks are playing this with Jace and like Sultai Control too. So you're seeing this card have kind of a renaissance as well, much like Dark Confidant. So this card has a big week, and I would expect some snapback in the coming weeks because this is a very aggressive spike. Number 2, Mox Opal, up 1916 this week to 86.50. This is the Modern Masters 2015 version. And again, another card that I would have almost 100% expected to be in Masters 25. I figured they'd want to put a Mox in the set for nostalgic reasons. Of course, thanks to the reserve list, you only have a couple options. Chrome Mox for this one. When it comes to Master sets, we saw Chrome Mox more recently, so why not Mox Opal was the logic. And I think a lot of people followed that logic as well. And that just simply didn't happen. So again, a very popular card, Lantern Control, runs this in Modern, which of course won the Pro Tour. A card that's part of a very popular Affinity deck in Modern as well. And not to mention it's playing Vintage, so has a huge spike this week. Another card where I think the sky is the limit. And even though we might see a snapback in the next week or two, ultimately I think this card just continues to gain momentum over time. Number 1, Karn Liberated. New Phyrexia up 2009 to 97.24. Modern Masters 2015 up 2203 to $96. Another card I think a lot of people were truly expecting to see in Masters 25. When it was revealed that it was not there, this card just shot up. Very, very popular deck right now in Modern, of course, is Tron. It's a very successful deck. There's a few variants of it, actually, but it's also a very popular deck. A lot of players just enjoy playing the deck. A lot of folks thought maybe we'd see the Tron lands reprinted, and this could be one of the mythics alongside it. Simply, again, that just didn't happen. This card just spikes through the roof. Again, I would expect some snapback. This is a pretty aggressive spike. However, over time, again, if we don't see a reprint of this card at some point soon, this thing's gonna cross the $100 threshold. Alright, let's move out of the insane world of Modern and go into the actually more stable world of Legacy. So let's see what lost value this week. Number 5, Vesuvian Doppelganger from Unlimited, down 22.75 to 24.75. This one actually spiked recently and just snaps back this week. It could have just been a market anomaly if somebody listed some of these at a higher price because there's not a lot of price points for these out there in the market typically. So yeah, it goes back down this week. Number 4, Drop of Honey, has a small decrease, 26.75 to 446.49 this week. Number 3, Guardian Beast, down 39.83 to 259.95. This card, even though, yes, it is super expensive still, I actually think it is a little undervalued at this point. I could imagine this being like one of those $500 Arabian Nights cards maybe within a year or two, because it is a card that is actually good in 93, 94, and it is a fan favorite, just popular card even from way back in the day. Number 2, we get one dual land this week. It's Tundra from Unlimited, down 58.80 to 303.68. Number 1, City Brass, down $100 and a cent to $219.99. I do want to point out this is not on the reserve list. It's been reprinted many times. You can find cheap copies of it if you want one, but that original one will cost you a little bit. All right, let's move on to the top 5 legacy cards that have gained value this week. Number 5, Sliver Queen, up 34 to 73.95. So there's been a lot of buzz for a long time that this card was undervalued because it is maybe the best of the Sliver Lords they ever printed. It's my personal favorite. So for casual players that like to play with slivers, this is a very sought after card. It's also on the reserve list. So take those two things into account, and really this card has felt cheap, felt like a steal for a long time. I think finally somebody's picked up on that and just went ahead and bought it out. Number 4, Force Field from Unlimited, trends up a little bit this week, up 46.11 to 2.89 as this continues to try to find its price point. Number 3, Jinan Ifrit, up 47.40 to $89. Now this is not on the reserve list. This has been reprinted in 4th edition, which you can pick up from your pennies. But a lot of these non-reserve list early cards, especially from Legends, recently have been spiking due to buyouts. There has been a little bit of crossover into some of the other early expansions as well. I think that's probably what's going on here. Number 2 is Diamond Valley, up 47.80 this week to 341.02 as it continues to try to find its price point back and forth. And number 1, The Abyss has a big week, up $140.93 to $582.50. All right, let's look at a few other notable cards. We're going to start off with a couple pauper picks. Flaring Pain is the first one, up 42 cents to $1.91. Pauper picks. I like saying that. This card has a pretty nice percentage increase this week, and it is played in a lot of different pauper builds. And another pauper pick, Chromatic Star, up 68 cents to $6.96. This is the 10th edition version this week. This is another card that a lot of people, I think, thought would be in Masters 25, perhaps, maybe even at Common. Again, that didn't happen. It has a nice spike this week, at least for the World of Pauper at 68 cents. But the card does see play in Affinity as well as Tron decks there. All right, a couple other notable mentions that are just kind of random modern cards I wanted to just bring up. And basically this one, because it's really hard to say. One Wooly Acid Moss. I think that's probably close enough. Up $1.44 to $4. And this is seeing play in some of the land destruction decks that you'll find in Modern right now. It has a pretty nice percentage increase this week. The other card, Tireless Tracker, up $2.64 this week to $8.74. I just wanted to point this one out because it had a nice week, obviously. But this is seeing play all over the place in Modern. Like many decks, Collected Company, Obzon, it's like showing up everywhere. So this is one of those cards that you may want to pick up if you don't have a play set, especially if you're a Modern player. I think this is just kind of your next Modern staple, basically. Ring of Maruf. I always like to point it out when this one goes up because I do think it's still undervalued. Up $18.46 this week to $97.75. So still not quite $100. And I think this is one of those cards maybe a year or two down the road will be $150, $200. And finally, Aiden Oakenshield goes up $26.30 this week to $95. I just like to point out these original gold legends when they go up. And this one is indeed on the reserve list. All right, with that being said, that is the Market Watch for this week. Now, yesterday we did part 1 of our 6-part Masters 25 full set review. It's a limited review. I'll link that at the end of the video if you're interested in that. And that's what we're going to continue doing throughout the week. Tomorrow we'll be back with the blue section and we'll move on through the colored pie as the week goes on. Next Saturday, though, we will be back with another Market Watch. But until next time, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.